Hi, welcome to Key Reports in MKey. I want to talk to you about a few reports that kind of give you a good thumbnail view of how well you're doing in your business and how well your employees are doing. So let's dive right in. Go to reporting and sales. I have a older database, so I'm going to have to alter the year here. But we pick our date. We can do by day. View report and sales. This is today's sales. This is this week's sales. And this is this week last year or the prior year. So they had a really good day today. This top report down to where, from monetary recap down to where just above sales recap, is nothing but the money report. This is how you know what you brought in and where those funds came from. This also includes deferred charge payments or deferred charge sales. Obviously, if we defer it, we're not actually collecting that money today. Here is how we count the money in sales recap, and typically everybody refers to net sales work done, but underneath this line is where we get our calculations for what we're charging in fees. So deferred charge net sales, we don't actually charge fees on that until 90 days or you've received payment. So that's why it says deferred charge over 90 days. Deferred charge paid in full, so anytime you receive a check and you record the payment, then that falls into this line, and net sales received is here. So the only other deductions from that, and this figure here, is to be one of two things. One is any charitable donations you've collected, and two is whatever the processing fees your merchant service charges on your credit card. There's a function in MKey that takes that and deducts it, so you're not paying franchise fees on your merchant service charges. So adjusted net sales is what your franchise fees are calculated on. You'll see here for the week it's $240.96. So we have 14, and we have collected 3,400 here, but we have 1,900 in sales this week. Totals out after deductions to 15,341.52. This is the figure MKey records as what you need to pay fees on. This is the figure net sales received is the figure MKey assumes that you're actually running for that week. The bottom is kind of a quick thumbnail business recap. The left side is how many cashed out tickets for the week, what your ticket average was, what your jobs were, and your jobs per ticket. Obviously, the store is running some decent money, a little above the average store, and you can see its jobs per ticket reflects that. On this side, you have your parts cost, which helps to calculate your GPM. If you sell tires, and the store does, your actual GPM is going to be a little lower. Your alternate GPM without the tires and oil change sales should be closer to the 80% range. Labor percentage, percent of sales from cash. On average, this will average somewhere between 7 and 15%, and it'll be pretty consistent there depending on your area that you're in. And we have total part sales, total labor sales, the shop supplies you collected. This should be 5% of sales minimum. So you would take this number divided by the net sales work done to determine if this was actually 5%, and it's not in this case. And then the same way with discounts. You do not want discounts to be 5%. You want it less than 5%. It is, and so that's a great thing. So that is your sales summary report, which prints on your end of day. Now we'll go and look at another report in the sales category. This is daily KPI. This is one of my favorite reports because there's so much to learn from it, and it really gives you a good snapshot of your business. This report comes to you every day as a biz alert, and you should really make yourself study it at least 3 times a week. That avoids any surprises on a bad week. So this is a KPI report. Most of you have seen one. Again, day, week, prior week, for the prior year's week for the same week. It's going to say number of tickets. This is real important. A lot of people call this their car count. It is not your car count. The number of estimates you wrote is your car count. So when you're starting to see 25 tickets go away, in this case 22, it's a serious thing. Again, ARO is really strong. Jobs per ticket is really strong. We want this to be more than 1.6 and closer to 2 or above 2 if possible. Decline dollars on invoice tickets. This number should be 2 times, minimum 1.5 times whatever your sales are for that week. Estimates deleted, don't ever want to delete estimates. Tickets with LOF and tickets with LOF only. So this tickets with LOF is the number of oil changes you have. Tickets with LOF only, we would look for this number to be 10% of this number. So we would expect it to be maybe 2 to 5, somewhere in there. As it is, there's 8 tickets of these 24 that we actually sold stuff on, which turns out to be 77% of our revenue, about $8,000 of this $14,000. And that's how we know and why we use and leverage oil changes. Oil changes is where we get A, our new customers, and B, our repeat customers, which spend money with us. Studies show that a customer that comes 3 times or more is what funds every MKey, and they spend more than $750 a year. A good shop would look at the tech productivity hours versus the hours clocked. If you're making your techs clock in and out, measuring these hours, the amount of hours that they produce should always be more than the amount of hours they've clocked in, and this productivity percentage really should run 100%. I suspect there's techs here that have not clocked in. Percent of customers with emails. Again, this goes back to leveraging our marketing, getting return customers who 23% of our customers is where we make all of our money. And so we need to get this around 80% and keep it there. Repeat customers, 57%. 70% would be a superstar. 57% close to 60 is doing real good. We want it well above 50%. 70% is our goal. And that tells you about the KPI report. I will point out, I won't go into it, one more report. Anytime you want to know what your franchise fees were or your math fees for any given week, right here is where you get that report or that number. By the way, when you transmit your sales, you're automatically prompted to and asked if you want to print this report twice. So calling and saying you don't know how much your franchise fees are, it's simply fixed by going and printing this report. The next report I want to show you is in employees. One of my favorite reports is sales and profit. And we'll do technicians, but you can get it for anyone. And I'm just going to pick 2015 and go with July again. But I'm going to go with, we'll go with about a week. What I like about this report, first off, is it divides it up by category, so you can see which categories your techs are selling and doing. The second thing it does is give you how many cars they worked on, So this is the number of tickets we cashed out. We expect every tech to do 25 minimum a week. How many jobs on those, what their jobs per ticket are, and what their ARO is. A further benefit of this report is this margin column here. This margin column removes cost of goods. If you've entered your cost of goods properly, you know how much money is left over to pay your bills and yourself after you pay the tech. So cost of goods is out of here. If we paid this tech $400, that would leave approximately $1,000 for you to pay your bills and everything. And the difference between that and a good tech, or a highly productive tech, would be this figure right here. This gentleman, for that 7-day period, brought in $11,000. He worked on 36 cars. His jobs per ticket is 1.8. And after we paid all the parts, we still had $8,000 left over. This is simply the difference between a productive tech and one that's not. We'll move on to some different reports. In production, there's a number of great reports here, including taxes collected, which is the one you want to use for paying your taxes. My favorite, though, is day of week ranking. There's a number of reasons for this. I'm going to again change this to 2015. We'll try to stay in July of 2015 and be consistent. And we'll just do the entire month and view report. Several things about this that are really strong. Number one, you see we have some pretty consistent days here. We also, average tickets started tells us really what our car count was by the day for that entire month. Obviously, Saturday is strong. Monday is strong. Our weakest day for this month was Thursday. So typically, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday will be our slow days. The other thing is you look at which days are ARO are strong and which days are weak. A lot of times what you'll find out is your weakest ARO day is when your best salesman takes the day off. Not necessarily your weakest car count day. And in this case, I would address that. This is an opportunity that you could fix by simply changing your work schedule to your slowest day. In other words, your best salesman off on Thursdays. From there, the other report I like is in miscellaneous, and it's reason for sale. In another item, when we were making an estimate in another training module, you had to mark what was the reason for the original visit. What this does is give us a difference here and tell us what people are actually coming in for. If you're looking for this and you're looking at this by the month, this is a real quick sign to tell you several things. One, are my people actually inspecting cars? Two, where is my business coming from? There's two things encouraging about this. Number one, oil change dollars for that month for this center was $5,000. Oil changes are cheap, but look what additional sales we got off of oil changes for that period, $13,000. Further, one of the main reasons people come to MKey is brakes. Typically, if the brakes are high, once somebody agrees to buy a higher volume, they typically will spend more money and go ahead and get the tires or shocks or whatever. A good center, a top of the line, 20 to 40,000 a week center. If this number's 20,000 for the month, so is this number. On a good center that's executing in other avenues, if this number's 10,000, this number's 20,000. So this one should double to be what additional jobs are. And in fact, it's more than double here. So a lot of times what happens, and just for your notice, we get a big ticket, so we think we don't need to inspect the other things on the car. But this goes back to making sure we inspect the car completely, working with the customer to do what's important, and then moving on from there. In this particular center, not a lot of tire sales in that much. Exhaust sales is pretty good, but again, we didn't sell anything else. People come in for exhaust. There are other opportunities there, especially if it's catalytic converters. And then the last report I want to show you is your shop supplies report. It's real simple. All you do is select shop supplies under miscellaneous reports of view report, and it tells you what your settings are. You don't need to print it out. This tells you exactly what your settings are, how your shop supplies are taxed, and then here they're taxed on parts only. They're charged on parts and labor, and what the minimum shop supply per ticket is. These are things you should look at and change as needed. And that concludes our what's important in reporting in MKey. Play with your reports a little bit. Look around. You'll find a lot of interesting and informative information. Thank you.